Welcome to Lesson 2 of Genki 3rd edition, a series where we're going to be covering all of Genki 1 before moving on to Genki 2. It's going to be amazing. So I actually haven't shaved since recording Lesson 1, and I was thinking maybe that I would challenge myself by not shaving until I finish the whole book, and hopefully that won't be too offensive to your eyes. But speaking of non-offensive things, of good things, of a bright future, Lesson 2 covers a lot of good stuff, which will help you understand Japanese a whole lot more and help you express yourself in Japanese a whole lot more. So, starting with this and that, kore, sore, are, we will be able to say, this is a cat, kore wa neko desu, or this is a book, kore wa hon desu. And then we will also be able to say something like, this book, kono hon desu, with the next grammar point, kono, sono, ano, and then dono, meaning which. Next, we're going to take a look at location words, here, there, where, koko, soko, asoko, and doko, before we're moving on to whose, dare no. So dare means who, and no is the possessive no, which we learned in lesson 1. Number 5 is also, or mo, saying that something is also something. So it's a new particle, which will be very useful. Number 6 is negative statements. So in lesson 1, we learned positive statements. So I am something, or something is something. Watashi wa gakusei desu, meaning I am a student, while watashi wa gakusei janai desu means I am not a student. And then lastly, we're going to take a look at ne and yo, and how to use them to sort of end a sentence to add some more information. Ne, if you add ne, you're sort of looking for agreement, while yo means that you're sort of confidently asserting something to the listener. But yeah, so starting with this and that, we have these words, we have this set of words, kore, sore, are, which all mean this or that in one way or another. And it basically depends on where you are in relation to what you're talking about and who you're talking to. So if we say kore, it means this, and it's near you, it's near the speaker. If we say sore, it's near the listener, and are is somewhere over there, neither near you nor the listener. And then dore means which one, if there are 3 or more things you're talking about. If it's just 2, you can say dochi. But we'll take a look at that in a minute. So an example of this would be this scene here. So imagine that you are the person sitting on the left eating meat. You can say kore wa niku desu. So this is meat. You don't have to point aggressively at your meat while doing this. It's enough that you just sit close to the meat. So kore wa niku desu. And then you might look at the fish on the other side of the table and say, sore wa sakana desu. Sore wa sakana desu. So that is fish. And then you can take a look outside the window and say, are wa yama desu. That is a mountain. Are wa yama desu, because it's not close to you nor the person you are speaking to. So it depends on where you are sort of located. We can combine this with nani, or what, or nan desu ka, as we learned in lesson 1. So we can say something like, kore wa nan desu ka? Kore wa nan desu ka? What is this? And maybe even more useful, or somewhat useful if you're studying Japanese, you can say something like, kore wa nihongo de nan desu ka? Kore wa nihongo de nan desu ka? What is this in Japanese? We won't cover this particle de until the next lesson, but for now, you can just learn this as a phrase. Kore wa nihongo de nan desu ka? What is this in Japanese? And then just go out and if you have a Japanese friend, just ask him what everything is and learn new vocabulary. It's going to be amazing. And let's say you're in Japan or in a country that has vending machines, which is probably most countries, if we're being honest. The answer might be それは自動販売機です。それは自動販売機です。But I think Japan is still in a league of its own when it comes to vending machines because they are absolutely everywhere, which can be very nice if you're thirsty. So looking at dore as a question word, you'll notice that we have to use yet another new particle. This time the particle is ga. So we don't say dore wa. Speaking of which, we say dore ga. And the difference between wa and ga is something that confuses a lot of Japanese learners, and we actually won't cover it in detail here. Just know that if you're using a question word, you need to use ga instead of wa. So it's dore ga niku desu ka? So which one is the meat? And then if we only have two things, it's dochi ga niku desu ka? Dochi ga niku desu ka? And it's of course the one on the left. Moving on to the next grammar point, we can specify. We can specify exactly which thing we are talking about. So instead of saying just これは猫です, this is a cat, we can say この猫です, so this cat, this specific cat. And hopefully we love that cat. And you'll notice that these words are very similar to kore, sore, and are, all starting with the same hiragana letters. So, but it becomes kono, sono, ano. And one other difference is that these words need to be followed directly by the noun they are specifying. And this applies to dono as well, which means which for three or more things. So examples of this might be このノートはいくらですか? So noto means notebook. So this notebook, このノートはいくらですか? So how much is this notebook? How expensive is this notebook? And then someone might reply and use そのノートは200円です because they're talking about something that you are maybe holding. そのノートは200円です. So that notebook is 200 yen. And that's one of the things this lesson covers. I won't get into it here. But if you have the book, I recommend that you study the numbers and how to tell prices and stuff like that. あの学生は日本人です. So that student is Japanese, and we are talking about a student that is not close to us. He is not close to the speaker, and he is not close to the listener. They are somewhere off in the distance, maybe. And then for dono, just like with dore, we need to use ga, but the ga comes after the noun because dono needs to be followed directly by a noun. So, どの先生が日本人ですか? どの先生が日本人ですか? And I'll let you decide which of these teachers is Japanese. Maybe they are both Japanese and we're just being racist. Because there are all sorts of people in Japan who have lived there all their lives. Here's a little dialogue example. So, いらっしゃいませ is something that you might hear when you enter a place of business, a store or a restaurant, where they are sort of greeting you. I sometimes feel compelled to answer in turn, いらっしゃいませ, which makes no sense at all. So just stay silent when you hear this. So, いらっしゃいませ. And then the customer might say, すいません、この傘はいくらですか? Excuse me, how expensive is this umbrella? すいません、この傘はいくらですか? And then the store clerk says, どの傘ですか? So which umbrella? この傘です。This umbrella. その傘は500円です. That umbrella is 500 yen. And hopefully it's a good umbrella. I must admit that I'm not quite sure on umbrella prices in Japan at the moment. But yeah. So moving on to the next grammar point, we have here and there. So, ここ、そこ、あそこ. It's just like kono, sono, ano. And kore, sore, and are very similar words. The biggest difference here is probably being that asoko has 3 letters. So koko, soko, asoko, and they all follow the same sort of rules. Koko here near the speaker, soko there near the listener, and asoko over there somewhere away from both the speaker and the listener. And then we have doko, which is maybe one of the most useful question words you will learn. So doko, where? You get lost in Japan and you ask, where's this? So, koko wa doko desu ka? Or maybe you should know where you are. But koko wa doko desu ka is something that you can't say. So, where is this? Where is here? Or you can ask something like, ginko wa doko desu ka? Where is the bank? Ginko wa doko desu ka? Or maybe more common, konbini wa doko desu ka? Where is the convenience store? Where is the nearest convenience store? Konbini wa doko desu ka? And someone might reply, asoko desu, it's over there. And then you can go into the convenience store or the konbini and have some excellent chicken or whatever you're into, or sandwiches. Moving on to the next grammar point, we have whose. And to express this question, we use the question word dare, meaning who, and the possessive no we learned in the last lesson. So dare no. So for example, これは誰のカバンですか? これは誰のカバンですか? Whose bag is this? カバン meaning bag. これは誰のカバンですか? So whose bag is this? それはソラさんのカバンです。That is ソラさんのカバンです。That is ソラさん's bag. それはソラさんのカバンです。And we are always sort of conscious or thinking about where things are in relation to who is speaking and who is listening. So, これは誰のカバンですか? I have the bag, and then someone replies, それはソラさんのカバンです。The next grammar point is also, which is indicated with the particle mo. So we are learning yet another particle. In lesson 1, we learned how to say something is something else, so X wa y des. But now we can say something is also something des. So X mo y des. So for example, if I just try to grab some books here, let's take this book. So Hagane no Renkin Jutsushi. Hagane no Renkin Jutsushi. And let's do Shingeki no Kyojin. So Hagane no Renkin Jutsushi wa manga desu. So Hagane no Renkin Jutsushi wa manga desu means Full Metal Alchemist is a manga. And then I can do Shingeki no Kyojin mo manga desu. So Shingeki no Kyojin mo manga desu. Attack on Titan is also a manga. Oops. And another example of this would be Yuiko-san wa Nihonjin desu. So Yuiko-san is Japanese. And then we can say Eri-san mo Nihonjin desu. So Eri-san is also Japanese. And you can also leave out the second half of the sentence. So you can say Eri-san mo. So and that would be understood as Eri-san is also Japanese. Moving on to negative statements. In lesson 1, we learned how to say that something is something, or state that something is, with des. And for negative statements, we simply replace it with janai desu. So, watashi wa gakusei desu becomes watashi wa gakusei janai desu. So, I am a student. Watashi wa gakusei desu. And then watashi wa gakusei janai desu means I am not a student. But there are some notable variations of this negative statement. So we have gakusei janai desu, but we can also say gakusei ja arimasen, which means exactly the same thing. And these two versions are sort of interchangeable in a way. But then we have gakusei de wa arimasen, which is a bit more formal. You might see it in writing a lot more. And then lastly, we simply have gakusei janai, which is sort of informal Japanese, which you might use with your friends or people you are close to, while you would use gakusei janai desu or gakusei ja arimasen to people who are strangers, to people who are your superiors or whatever. Here's a little dialogue example. So, Smith-san wa America jin desu ka? So, is Smith-san an American? Smith-san wa America jin desu ka? And then the answer can be, Hai, America jin desu. Yes, he's American. Maria-san mo America jin desu. So, Maria-san is also an American. Noah-san wa? Noah-san wa? So, how about Noah-san? And you'll notice here that we don't actually have to form a complete sentence. We don't have to say, Noah-san wa nani jin desu ka? Or something like that. We can just say, Noah-san wa? So how about Noah-san? Noah-san wa America jin janai desu. So Noah-san is not American. Fransu jin desu. So he's French. And you'll notice that we can omit the subject. We don't have to say, Noah-san wa Fransu jin desu. We just say Fransu jin desu. Or we can also leave out Noah in the first half of the sentence. So, America jin janai desu, Fransu jin desu. And then, sou desu ka? Sou desu ka? Is that so? So, Smith-san wa America jin desu ka? Hai, America jin desu. Maria-san mo America jin desu. Noah-san wa America jin janai desu. Fransu jin desu. Sou desu ka? So that would be a very riveting conversation you might hear somewhere on campus if you are a university student. Moving on to the last grammar points, we have ne and yo to end sentences with. Ne meaning something like right, when you are seeking agreement or confirmation from the listener. And then yo, a sort of I'm telling you, you are giving the listener maybe new information or implying that what you're saying is being said with confidence and conviction. You believe what you're saying. So, firstly, some examples for ne. So, ここは日本ですね. Maybe you're a bit lost. Maybe you think you're in China or Korea. ここは日本ですね. You've been teleported. It's the future. ここは日本ですね. And then some Japanese person shakes your hand or bows and confirms that you are in Japan. Or 今6時半ですね. You're not quite sure what the time is. You think it's 6:30. So 今6時半ですね. And someone says, はい、6時半です. And then you know exactly what time it is and that you aren't late for your date. Lastly, we have yo. So we could say something like, とんかつは魚じゃないですよ. So a pork cutlet is not a fish. I'm telling you. とんかつは魚じゃないですよ. So とんかつ is a pork cutlet. 魚は、魚 means fish. So とんかつは魚じゃないです means a pork cutlet isn't fish. But if you add the yo, it's like I'm telling you. And then maybe someone isn't sure that tonkatsu is delicious or that it tastes good. And then you can try to convince them by saying, 美味しいですよ. 美味しいですよ. So 美味しい is the first adjective mentioned in Genki, and we actually won't get deeper into adjectives until lesson 4, I think, because lesson 3 covers verbs mostly, but it's still a very useful word to know. So 美味しい just means that it's good. Someone might ask you, 美味しいですか? はい、美味しいです if the food is good. And we won't learn how to say that it's not until a bit later. But let's say that you are trying to convince your friend to eat tonkatsu. You just say, 美味しいですよ. And then he will maybe, okay, I will try it. So, okay. So, keep in mind that the next lesson will not have any romaji above the hiragana. So make sure to master hiragana as much as possible so you can keep up. Make sure to keep up with the vocabulary and practice the numbers in Japanese. I'm not really covering the numbers here, but you can take a look at them in the book. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more Japanese language and culture. Where's the culture? I don't know. We'll see. This is just the second video on the channel. But anyways, mata ne. Look forward to the status of my beard in the next lesson and the lesson after that. There are 12 lessons in total. Maybe I shouldn't have done this challenge.